Hey, welcome back. I appreciate if you guys checked out the intro and are super pumped up to dive into the first concept. I am as well too. If you're seeing me for the first time and you're wondering what the heck I'm all about or what's going on, I want to be mindful of both of our times because I'm a man on a mission. But at the same time, like, you deserve to know if you're checking out my content. So my name's Nick Kleitch, and I'm the creator and the host of the Life with Nick brand and the podcast. The podcast is all about me running into everyday people and giving them a voice. I think there's so many amazing and cool people out there that deserve to go on podcasts, have fun, and talk on podcasts. So you can explore that on my YouTube channel. The second thing is I do a concept called book reads, where I take a book, I read a book, I break down concepts within that book and deliver on a coaching platform. I really believe that we're supposed to get better consistently throughout the duration of our lives, and I want to make a very large splash in this world and improve the lives of over 1 million people through these type of settings. So if that's something for you, check out my page. If not, you are great, and I hope our paths cross down the road. Thank you so much. All right, getting into concept 1 in Emotional Agility by Susan David. So the title for what we're going into today is called, Are You Too Emotionally Rigid? So we're going to be discussing emotions a lot in this book, and specifically what they are, how they impact us, and essentially what it means to be emotionally agile. If you think about it, emotions are one thing that we can never get away from. There is something that everyone shares in common, right? Our emotions. Our emotions are what dictate both our inner state and our outer state, and that's the thing that I want us to really kind of think about for a second as we're adults, because we don't really have a formal training on, hey, you have emotions, but how do they impact our life? So just to take a step back, we didn't really have, and we don't really have, a guiding light in this life. But one thing we do kind of have is we have emotions rather, but how they help us navigate life essentially. So they're a neurochemical system that has evolved years and years and years to basically help us navigate life. Emotions ranging from fear, excitement, love, hatred, all across the spectrum, the whole rainbow of the life experience. And so with all of that, it's essentially our body's physical response to outside and inside signals from the world. And these responses are constantly going from out to in to out. And that is how we try to sync up with the situations at hand when we're going into life events. They have definitely helped us and helped us thrive, in our history and in our kind of built-in guidance system, if you will. But one thing we have to realize is that in today's world, we're not faced with the threats that we once were faced with. And so this is where I think we run into trouble in today's world, because it is our emotions that may be what we don't understand versus just, hey, I think I have this or I think I have that. And that's the effort that we're trying to come across today. So the hard part here is that we're in a constant state of change in the world. And because the world does not stop, we're constantly having to adapt to an ever-changing world. And so on any given day, we can be happy, we can be stressed, we can be upset, we can be proud, we can be motivated or depressed. All that happens, and it's just like this consistent but constant roller coaster going up and down and up and down. And the reason I bring that up is because when you're understanding your emotions, you can't help but then put together the fact that when you're going out into actively participating in the world, you're going to go through the roller coasters. So if you really are someone that relies on how you feel about a lot of things, just realize that that might be where some of the anxiety comes from, because even though you feel something does not mean like that is the reality of what's going on. So hopefully that's a good Kickstarter for us as we're exploring this topic. So with the constant change piece in mind, the next thing we need to understand is that our emotions are not always reliable. They help us through life and they can get us through certain situations, but sometimes they help us, not help us, but they basically say, hey, here you go. Here's some old business that you have not kind of come to terms with, or here's a clouded judgment on a thought because we have a bias towards a certain XYZ, or a past experience that was painful and that triggers us in the future. All of this is essentially what makes our emotional system kind of go. So what does it mean then to be emotionally agile, right? What's the kind of general concept of what we're trying to get into in this concept coaching piece? And really, emotional agility helps us become more aware of our emotions, helps us learn to accept our emotions, and honestly to make peace with them as well, and then be able to flourish throughout life with the continued practice of emotional agility. So it's not about always controlling your thoughts and having a forceful control on your thinking positively all the time. It's more about how you respond with your emotional warning system. And I love that distinction, so I'll share it one more time just before we move on here. So we're not trying to control our thoughts, right? Our thoughts are flowing like waves. They're coming in, right? But with the continued practice of emotional agility, we choose and create space with our emotional warning system on how we basically interact with the world and with our emotions. So let's break this down just a little bit. So the agility part in emotional agility addresses like our thinking and our behavior process. Bad habits of the mind and body prevent us from living well. Bad habits of mind and body prevent us from living well. Rigid actions and reactions may come from buying into old self-defeating stories we tell ourselves. So basically this is saying agility is how we respond in our behavior and in our thinking. The rigidity comes from old stories that we tell ourselves that may or may not be true. So let's take a further into emotional rigidity. And this is essentially getting hooked by thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that don't serve us. So again, we're going to run into these all the time, right? This is the emotion. This is the wave that we're riding. When things are good, we can ride this out. But when we go down to dip, this is where the concepts in this book are going to come into play. So when we get hooked by a thought, when we get hooked by a feeling, we have the ability to be agile with that emotional response. And some rigidity leads to depression, anxiety, and other mental illnesses. So being emotionally agile is being flexible with your thoughts and feelings so you can respond optimally to life's situations, which can be a major contributor to a successful life. So the ultimate goal of emotional agility is to keep a sense of growth and challenge and to live well through that, right? So if we're constantly growing and challenging ourselves, and then there's timelines for both of those things, right? When those things are happening and you're going through life, that leads to a very fulfilling life experience. And that's what we're after here. So we're almost wrapping up this first concept coaching. So hang on with me here if you're feeling it a little bit. So we're going to get really tactical right now, okay? And I want you guys to write this down if this is something that you want to kind of process and take with you. So emotional agility is a process that allows you to be in the moment, changing or maintaining behaviors to live in ways that align with your intentions and values. I'll hit it one more time really quick. Emotional agility is a process that allows you, either in the moment, when you're changing, or when you're maintaining, to live a way that aligns with your intentions and values. The process is holding those emotions and thoughts loosely, facing them courageously and compassionately, then moving past them to make big things happen in your life. So there's 4 things that we're going to focus on in later concept coaching segments, but just to break this down, because we're trying to figure out, right, if we're emotionally rigid or not. And this is a little bit of a test while also giving you a little bit of nuggets here. So we're going to focus on, within the emotional agility process, how to showing up. Second is stepping out. How do we get unhooked? 3 is walking your why, and this is intentions and values. And 4th is moving on, and that's being able to just come to terms with things. So I'll hammer that out one more time here too. Showing up, stepping out, walking your why, and moving on. I love that. There's so many good things we're going to get into. So let's round this out by talking about emotionally agile people and what they are. They're dynamic. They're flexible in a fast-paced world. They can tolerate high levels of stress, and yet they can endure setbacks while also remaining open and engaged in the world. That is really what emotionally agile people do. They can bob and weave. They have a plan. They're going and attacking their daily plan, but yet when things come up, they can respond, they can take it in, they can read the room, and they can move forward in the direction of their long-term goals. That's what it means to be agile, right? And agility is a skill. Like in a sport, you can be agile in terms of jumping back and forth to cone or whatnot, but rarely do we think of it in the sense of, do I have the skill set to be able to be agile with my emotions as they come up and down? This is the first concept coaching episode, and this is like their cherry on top here. So one thing I want to key in on, and that I appreciate in preparing this episode, and this is the author that addresses this, and her perspective is life is part negative. And a lot of people in personal development do not work this in particular. And I know this because I've read a ton of books in the genre. Sometimes they hammer on, got to stay positive. You got to have gratitude. And yes, you do. And you do have to think the glasses are half full. But she says, you know what? Sometimes it just fucking sucks. Life just fucking sucks. Negative is a part of the human experience. And so with that in mind, in some respects, like bad things happen to good people. We will experience negativity and a lot of those negative emotions. But she believes, and we'll get into this in further concept coaching, is that negative emotions, as much as positive emotions, have their purpose in our life experience. They are teachers. They are signals. They are things we need to understand about ourselves. Negative emotions are as useful, if not more useful, than positive emotions. And I'll leave you with this. Think about how good you feel when you feel good, right? It's an incredible thing. You're confident, you're getting things done, you're hanging out with people that you care about, XYZ. What if in the bad moments you had the structure, you had the formula and the methodology and the confidence to apply some of the things that we're going to be talking about here in your everyday life? That to me gives you the best chance at living the human experience. So hopefully we picked up something from this first concept coaching that we did. Are you too emotionally rigid? Maybe you are, maybe you're not. We will learn and find out in concept number 2. So thank you guys so much for tuning in, and until next time.